Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. It's been a few weeks since Charlie Kirk was assassinated at his event in Utah, and since then a lot of different things have been said about Charlie Kirk, one of which being that he was a martyr. Donald Trump at his memorial called him a martyr for American freedom. I understand why many may be immediately hesitant to call Charlie Kirk a Christian martyr. After all, many think of him more as a political figure, and a controversial one at that, rather than a religious figure. I've seen several videos considering the question of whether Charlie Kirk can be called a Christian martyr, but none of them seem to lay out an argument like the one that I'm about to lay out here. First, I want to start by laying out some categories of martyrdom that we might consider. The first I'm calling an unsuspecting martyr. This would be someone who is killed for their faith in Christ, but that didn't necessarily think that they would be killed for their faith in Christ. The second would be a willing martyr. This is someone who at least knew while setting out that the possibility of being killed for their faith was a reality. And finally, the third category I'm calling a super willing martyr. This would be someone who was given the chance to recant before they were killed and so possibly save their lives. My argument in this video is going to be that Charlie Kirk falls into at least the first, if not the second category of martyr that I just laid out. So with that, the definition of a Christian martyr that I'm using in this video is someone that was killed for their faith in Christ, or for views that were a natural consequence of their faith in Christ, and who had no serious and unrepentant sin in their lives that would disqualify them from being considered a true Christian. For some who might have a problem with that second clause of the argument that says that those who were killed for views that were a natural consequence of their faith in Christ should also be considered martyrs, I would ask them to consider John the Baptist. John the Baptist, who many consider to be a Christian martyr, was not killed for his faith in Christ per se, but rather because he confronted Herod with his unlawful divorce and remarriage, and these views were a natural consequence of his faith in Christ. I included the last part about having no serious and unrepentant sin because I do think that many of the objections will come from concerns that people find in what Charlie Kirk has said and how he has acted in the past. And also it would disqualify someone from being considered a Christian martyr if, let's say, they met all the other aspects of the definition, but then it came out later that they had some horrible sin in their past, which I think is fair. So with that definition in place, now we can consider how well Charlie Kirk might fit that definition. First, I'll argue that Charlie Kirk's views were a natural consequence of his faith in Christ, particularly on matters regarding LGBT. You don't have to listen to Charlie for very long to hear that he at least considered his Christian faith to be foundational to all of his other views. His views on LGBT reflect the plain meaning of the Christian scriptures, and how those scriptures have been interpreted by the church for over 2,000 years. I won't defend that point in this video because I think it's fairly obvious, and actually many Christians and LGBT activists agree with this point. The next part of the argument is that Charlie Kirk was killed by someone who was angry over his Christian views, particularly those regarding LGBT. This is going to be the most debatable premise in the argument so far because we're early into the investigation. Some things that point in this direction right now, however, are that the killer's family said that he was getting more into trans and pro-gay rights in the recent past. The killer also had a trans partner who he was texting right after the murder in such a way that one might conclude that love for this person and for what they stood for might be a factor in his motivation. In addition, a family member of the trans partner said that the partner had recently grown a hatred of Christians and conservatives. I suspect that the evidence for this premise will get stronger as we learn more throughout the investigation. And finally, Charlie Kirk had no known serious and unrepentant patterns of sin that would disqualify him from being considered a true Christian. I know that there are a few clips circling out there in which some say that Charlie Kirk's behavior and words are concerning for a Christian. Aside from the fact that viewing the clips in their full context undoes many of the concerns surrounding them, even if we take at face value what people are saying, none of them seem to rise to a level of serious and unrepentant sin that would disqualify one from the Christian faith. If they do rise to that level, I would just say there would probably be very few actual Christians left on the earth by that standard. So if you agree that Charlie Kirk fits that definition, that he was killed for his faith in Christ, or for views, in this case those on LGBT, that were a natural consequence of his faith in Christ, and that he had no serious and unrepentant patterns of sin that would disqualify him from the Christian faith, then you should go on to the conclusion and conclude that Charlie Kirk should and can be considered a Christian martyr. With that being said, can we move on from the first category and put Charlie also in the second category of a willing Christian martyr? Consider again John the Baptist, who probably knew going into Herod that calling out this unlawful divorce and remarriage would be a risk to his life. The apostles, likewise, having just seen Jesus crucified, and also having already received beatings and persecutions themselves, must have known that by continuing in ministry, that they were risking their lives. For these reasons, John the Baptist and the apostles move into that category of a willing martyr. But does Charlie Kirk? Well, Charlie Kirk had seen another attempted assassination on his friend Donald Trump, and knew that assassination culture was on the rise in America. Charlie also received death threats, and in response to one friend texting him over security concerns, Charlie responded, "I know they want me dead." With this background, and seeing Charlie Kirk continue to go to these college campuses, despite his knowledge of these threats, and preach the gospel and also share his views on LGBT, which come from his Christian faith while he was there, I think it's fair that we consider Charlie Kirk also a willing Christian martyr. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you want to see me make more videos.